Don't start a war that you can actually defend yourself against. That's what the Israeli government has done. They started a war with Iran, and now that they realized Iran can actually fight back against the Israeli government, since the Israeli government is only used to fighting against starved and weakened children. They want to pretend that they're afraid of what is going on. I mean, again, don't start a war that you cannot fight against. This is the problem with the Israeli government. They want to attack every other nation and then act like they're the victims because they're Jewish. And that is not what is going on here. They're the only, they're the victims of the Zionist Israeli government attacking other nations, thinking they have the right to genocide everybody around them.
What you're hearing there is air sirens in Israel warning of another Iranian missile barrage today, reportedly hitting 3 areas, including Tel Aviv. Earlier today, Iran also launched missiles near residential apartments and office buildings in southern Israel. I want to bring in Robert Murat for more. He is a professor at the Maxwell School of Citizenship and Public Affairs at Syracuse University. Thank you so much, Robert, for making time for us on 24/7 today. I want to ask here, what are the risks to U.S. national security as it pertains to this conflict?
Yeah, great question, Moog. I would say probably the biggest risk is the duration and the scope of the conflict and the potential that it has for expanding beyond the current parameters in terms of the exchange between the Israelis and the Iranians. And there's a lot of concern across not just the region, but I think across the globe for something that could extend beyond the current exchange for air attacks back and forth that the two countries are having.
And so in the event, let's just say the U.S. does eventually get involved in this conflict, what assets are in the region right now, and what is the process of actually mobilizing them?
There's already a significant number of U.S. assets in the region, as I think most people are aware of: air, ground, and naval. These are forces that are based in the Gulf states, elsewhere in Saudi Arabia and so forth, and also naval forces to include. We'll have 3 aircraft carriers in the region shortly to plus up our naval presence and significant.
I'm hoping that Iran is able to take out some of these U.S. Military ships and planes and stuff. This is just again the United States bending to the will of Israel and allowing U.S. military people to be murdered for the will of the Israeli government.
Air assets from both the Air Force and the United States Navy in the region that could conduct air attacks and also provide additional defensive posture and force protection for the ground, naval, and air forces that we've got in the region.
So I want to ask, where exactly does the U.S. Bunker busting bomb, what does it come into play here? Because obviously we know Israel does not have the capability to go into Fordow and actually blow up that place, but the United States apparently does. So how?
Yeah, Israel does not have the capabilities of defending itself, which is why it's constantly begging the United States, the UK, and Germany, and other nations to defend itself. Uh, Constantly, this is what the Israeli government does. It attacks other nations and then beg other nations to protect it from the nations that they attack and using their right to self-defense. It's truly pathetic. Don't initiate a war that you can't defend yourself against.
How does that work, and when and where does that come into play?
Yeah, a great question. I think there's been a tremendous amount of attention of what, from a targeting standpoint, a weapon that we know is the GBU-57, which is also known as the Massive Ordnance Penetrator weapon, and the potential that has for being used against the underground nuclear-related facilities in Iran at Fordo, mountainside site. Having said that, a word of caution. I would, not want people to believe that if the United States uses this weapon against that specific target, it's going to solve the whole problem and bring to a screeching halt the nuclear program such as it exists in Iran. It is a tool in the toolbox. It's
Yeah, no matter what Israel does, Iran is still going to get nuclear power. They can scream and cry and whine all they want, but the Israeli government cannot stop the Iranian government from having nuclear power. I know the Israeli government continually screams that Iran is on the verge of having nuclear weapons, even though the Israeli government has nuclear weapons and they won't allow the UN to assess their weapons because they think they're special.
a very impressive weapon that can make a big deal of difference. The final comment, the facility at Fordo is what we call an HCBT, a hard and deeply buried target, and one that is really difficult to get at. So the weapon would certainly make a difference there. But again, I would caution against
I actually hope that the Iranian government uses bunker busting bombs against Israel because you know they're gonna cry about Iran using those against them and that, oh, Iran is attacking our bunkers underneath our hospitals and blah 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 and we're the victims here, blah blah blah. Dude, I really hope that Iran uses some bunker busting bombs against Israel.
believing that this is going to solve all our concerns we may have about